Today is Monday, December 4th. We'll update you on the war in the Middle East that's now expanded to the entire Gaza Strip and what to know about a U.S. warship attacked in the region. Also, a historic and bipartisan move in Congress to kick one lawmaker out, and that's already become the plot of a new movie. Plus, remembering the first woman to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court. Which part of the country can expect strong storms this week? And an iconic American band becoming the first to go virtual in retirement. Those stories and more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. The war in the Middle East is heating up once again and expanding. Over the weekend, Israel says it unleashed its 10,000th airstrike on Gaza since the war began. And it's now expanding its ground war and airstrikes to encompass the entire Gaza Strip. The Israeli military says it's just trying to dismantle Hamas in the south the same way it did in the north. Though the U.S. has been leaning on Israel to not repeat the same scale of destruction and to avoid civilian casualties in this phase of the war, especially since most of the people who were displaced from their homes in the north have taken refuge in the south. And many people in Gaza say they're running out of places to go as Israel orders more evacuations. So far, these most recent attacks have also been deadly and destructive. In fact, some reports say hundreds of Palestinians were killed in just 24 hours over the weekend. And the Hamas-controlled Gaza Health Ministry says the total number of Palestinians killed in the war is close to 16,000 so far, mostly women and children. But Israel says it's also killed thousands of Hamas militants and destroyed hundreds of tunnels that Hamas has been operating in. Some were apparently found near or even inside places like schools, playgrounds, hospitals, and mosques. So the Israeli government says the blame lies solely with Hamas, in part because it's again accusing the militant group of using civilians as human shields, but also because Israel says its hand was forced by the October 7th attack that killed 1,200 people and took hundreds more hostage. More than 100 of those hostages have since been set free, but nearly 140 are believed to still be in Hamas captivity. And it's not clear what's next for them, since there's no signs of another temporary truce coming anytime soon. Israel actually called its negotiators home from Qatar, saying the talks have reached a dead end. Though here in the U.S., the White House says it's working to get talks going again. The Biden administration also says it wants Israel to restore the amount of humanitarian aid allowed into Gaza to the level seen during the last temporary ceasefire. Some trucks have been let in over the weekend, but not nearly as many as last week and way fewer than before the war broke out. So stay tuned. Well, there are growing fears of an even wider war in the Middle East as things seem to be getting more dangerous for shippers and military personnel moving across one key trade route. Twice yesterday, an American warship came under attack in the Red Sea, though it wasn't alone. Iranian-backed militants out of Yemen, called the Houthis, carried out an hours-long assault. They struck 3 commercial ships and targeted the U.S. military. So the Pentagon says it shot down 3 drones in self-defense. No one was reported hurt. But now the U.S. military says it's considering a stronger response, especially since these attacks are not expected to end here. The militant group spokesperson says ships will still be considered legitimate targets until Israel ends its war in Gaza. Meanwhile, American officials say the U.S. also killed 5 militants in Iraq in self-defense, as the militants were apparently preparing to launch another drone attack on U.S. forces there. Rockets also reportedly hit a U.S. military base in Syria yesterday, though there were no reports of casualties or damage. Well, people all around the country are paying tribute to someone who was once called the most powerful woman in America. Retired Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor died at 93 years old from complications related to advanced dementia and a respiratory sickness. O'Connor was the first woman to serve on the High Court, and she did so for a quarter of a century. And because she was in the ideological center, she often cast the deciding vote in some of the most polarizing opinions. For example, she made the final call in past cases involving abortion, affirmative action, national security, campaign finance reform, separation of church and state, and more. Soon after her death, public figures from the left and the right honored O'Connor's legacy, like former President Barack Obama, who praised her for, quote, forging a new path and building a bridge behind her for all young women to follow, and former President George W. Bush, who called her determined and honest, modest and considerate, dependable and self-reliant. In an extraordinary move not seen in 20 years, lawmakers overwhelmingly decided to expel an American congressman. George Santos became the 6th lawmaker in history to be ousted from the U.S. House. In the end, more than 100 of his fellow Republicans voted with nearly all the Democrats to remove Santos after just 11 scandalous months in office. After the vote, Santos said House lawmakers, quote, set a dangerous precedent for themselves, making the point that his ouster could lead to more politically motivated expulsions in the future. And he promised to make multiple complaints against other lawmakers to the House Ethics Committee today. But his critics say members of Congress need to be held to a higher standard, no matter who they are or how they vote. Santos is still facing criminal charges on allegations he misled donors, fraudulently received jobless benefits, charged his donors' credit cards without authorization, and more. And he could face jail time. Santos has pleaded not guilty to those charges, but has admitted to lying about big parts of his resume and personal background on the campaign trail. Meanwhile, back in his home state of New York, more than a dozen candidates are already vying for the new vacancy in the House. It will be up to New York's governor to announce the date of a special election to fill Santos's open seat. By the way, if you think all of this sounds like a potential movie plot, you're not alone. In fact, HBO told Deadline there's already a movie in the works based on Santos's career. It's supposed to be a dark comedy from the same executive producer who did Veep and Succession. So far, no specific release date has been announced. We have much more news for you still ahead. But first, a break for our sponsor. So the reason I've moved away from a daily multivitamin is because I'm now drinking AG1 every day. And AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that can replace your multivitamin and probiotic and really support whole body health. AG1 makes me feel like I'm ready to take on the day, that I've done something good for my body first thing in the morning. I drink it before I eat anything. And I've noticed a nice boost in energy too. I also appreciate that it's easy to put my AG1 into a to-go cup and take it with me, whether that's around the house, on a walk, or in the car. And that it's just one simple, drinkable habit. 1 scoop of AG1 mixed with water, that's it. Anything that helps me save time and makes me feel good? Yes, please. If you're looking for a simpler, effective investment for your health, try AG1 and get 5 free AG1 travel packs and a free 1-year supply of vitamin D with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/newsworthy. That's drinkag1.com/newsworthy. Check it out. Now back to the news. This week, the western U.S. is in for one strong storm after another. Forecasters say millions of Americans can expect rain, snow, and more rain. For example, Portland, Oregon. The city could get as much rain in just a few days as it typically gets for the entire month of December. And the National Weather Service says the Oregon coast could get up to 10 inches of rain. Higher elevations are expected to get even more, but as snow. Some people could also end up dealing with strong winds, flooding, and avalanches from California to Washington. These storms started over the weekend and are expected to continue through Wednesday without a whole lot of break in between storm systems. So meteorologists are warning people to pay close attention to the forecast and the road conditions as the week goes on. Well, it seems there has been some progress at the UN's annual climate conference, or at least some new commitments. For example, the U.S. and 56 other countries agreed to phase out coal power plants and not build any new ones. They did not announce an exact deadline, but here in the U.S., the Biden administration has already targeted 2035, hoping to replace coal plants with alternatives that don't have such a large carbon footprint, like wind and solar energy. Another big focus at COP28 is controlling methane, since research has shown that even small amounts of methane in the atmosphere can equal the climate warming effects of burning coal. For America's part, the EPA unveiled final rules meant to dramatically reduce methane pollution in the next 15 years by cracking down on the oil and gas industry. The new policies would require oil companies to do things like monitor for leaks, and it would ban certain activities that lead to large methane releases. Oil and gas companies have said they are still reviewing all the ins and outs of the rule, but that, in concept, they're supportive. Other countries will also be detailing how to slash methane during COP28, which runs another week. This could be the second big airline merger in less than 2 years. Over the weekend, Alaska Airlines announced a nearly $2 billion deal to buy rival Hawaiian Airlines. The plan is for them to keep their separate brands, but to have broader reach, especially in Hawaii, as this could connect the state to 3 times as many destinations in the continental U.S. Executives say the deal will solidify Alaska Airlines' position as the 5th largest U.S. carrier, and they've already gotten the approval of both companies' boards. But they still have to win over regulators, who might be a tougher sell, since they have challenged other recent airline mergers. You'll remember the Justice Department sued to block the deal between JetBlue and Spirit Airlines. A federal judge is set to hear closing arguments in that case this week. Kiss closed out its final performance of its farewell tour over the weekend. And with that, the end of a 50-year era for the biggest glam rock band of all time. But just because the band's members are retiring doesn't actually mean fans have to say goodbye. During the encore, the band returned as digital avatars, which is apparently how Kiss is going to be performing from now on. One of the band's co-founders, Gene Simmons, says the idea is they can stay forever young and forever iconic, and really, maybe, even better. Now, Kiss will be able to play even in different cities on the same night across different continents. It's not clear when and where these avatars will appear next, but all the bandmates made it clear the new era is already here. That's it for the main news, so now it's time for Money Monday, when we talk about one interesting money-related news story. But first, support for today's episode comes from Castleflex. If you are looking to gift yourself or a loved one improved health this holiday season, then consider Castleflex. Because I can tell you from experience, it takes your daily stretching routine to a whole other level. My back often feels sore after lifting my toddler and having to run after him, but I can really tell the difference when I use my Castleflex. My body feels more mobile, lighter, and just overall better, which then gives me more all-around energy. And here's an added bonus. Castleflex is now HSA, FSA eligible. Remember, those funds are often use it or lose it by the end of the year, so this is a great option. Also special this holiday season, Castleflex is allowing returns until after the holidays, so you have until January 15th, so you can buy now and gift it later without any worry. Although, listen, they have a less than 1% return rate anyway, so you probably won't even need to use that. Learn more at Castleflex, flex with 2 X's, castleflex.com, and be sure to use our code NEWS12 for 10% off. Again, follow the link in our episode notes and use the code NEWS12 to get 10% off. Now back to Money Monday. So shoppers might notice a new trend this holiday shopping season. If something you buy doesn't end up working out, you might just be able to get your money back without having to actually return it. A return services firm surveyed 500 executives at 21 major retailers like Walmart and Amazon. And what it found was this year, about 60% are offering so-called returnless or keep it policies. And that's way more than last year. Apparently, it's pretty costly processing, repackaging, and trying to resell merchandise, like more than what many items are even worth. So keep it policies are being embraced more and more. Some retailers that have offered them on certain items in the past include Amazon, Wayfair, and Chewy.com. But that doesn't mean you should count on this kind of policy either. It depends on what you're buying. Also, most companies will check out your history too, like they'll look at how long the customer has been with them, how many purchases have been refunded, and so on. Overall, American shoppers are expected to return $173 billion worth of holiday purchases this year. All right, thank you so much for listening today and every day. We'll be back with more news to know tomorrow. For now, have a great day.